Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Conforti. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's installment of the A2 2021 Virtual Discussion Series. Our goal here is to bring together association professionals with industry leaders and partners to bring value to the community. In this series, we're having one-on-one discussions, expert panels, product overviews, and other sessions to spark discussions about data and related topics. And all of that is to help us drive performance in our associations and to serve our members better. And we hope to do that in ways that are fun and engaging. We've got a fun and engaging panel online ready to tell you some cool things today. So during the session, we'd love to hear from you. See a lot of people in there already introducing themselves, which is awesome. So use the chat tool and also the Q&A. You can submit questions through there as well. And we'll make sure that that those get answered. And as Greg pointed out, we want to make sure that everybody uses the all panelists and attendees function, so you don't just send your comments to us. And lastly, today's webinar is eligible for CAE credit. So if any attendee would like to claim that credit, if you would just write CAE in the chat, and if your Zoom ID does not have your complete first and last name, then you should add that as well. So CAE in the chat in order to claim that credit. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about community, right? So whether you're considering a community for the first time or you're looking for ways to get more from the community you've had for years, we'll have something for you in today's conversation. So we're joined by the undisputed leaders of association virtual communities, Higher Logic. We'll have practical tips on community use and automation, how to get more from the data, and how to kind of think outside the box in terms of how you're using your community and the data that it produces. So with that, we'll go to some introductions, and we're going to start with our very own Greg Pollock.
Thanks, Bill. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited for this presentation today. Jenny and I put a lot of thought and effort into this, and hopefully you all get a lot of benefits out of it. If you don't know me by now, my name is Greg. I am the VP of Sales here at Association Analytics. But my whole career, I've been working with and for associations and nonprofits. At the top right, you see me there, fresh face at a trade show way back in the day, working hard. I did work at Higher Logic with Jenny for a number of years, so very familiar with the community platform. And then in my personal life, I like to race really slow cars around tiny parking lots. If you have a Miata, you are already my friend. We should talk after this. But I'm excited to co-present with one of the best community minds out there. She won't admit it, but Jenny knows more about how to run an online community successfully than anybody I've met. And I'm excited to present with her today. Jenny, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks so much, Greg. What a kind introduction. As Greg mentioned, he and I have worked together at Higher Logic in the past. I have been with Higher Logic for the past 6 years. I started as a community manager, so really enjoy the strategies and really tapping into the human aspect of community and then marrying it with data. So I hope you all are as excited about this webinar as I am. A little bit about me, as you'll see from my photos, I'm a huge Washington Nationals fan. This was from the wild card game that got us into the pennant a couple years ago. I also love acting in my free time. We have 2 rescue dogs, my husband and I, and then this is actually my first week back from maternity leave with that little sass monster that you see there, Sean Gregory, which he was not named after Greg, unfortunately, but
Still a great name.
Still a great name.
Awesome. So if you've been on our webinar series before, you know we like to start with a section here just for fun. So just for fun today, we want to know, what is your emerging from the COVID quarantine plan? A lot of us are getting our vaccinations. A lot of businesses are reopening. What's your plan to get back out there? Are you planning on hitting the beach? Is it going to the mountains? Is it a concert with 1 million of your best friends to see your favorite artist? Is it going to that local racetrack and driving your slow car around as fast as you can? What is your kind of emerging from COVID plan? Is it going to your favorite trade show again? Drop a note in the chat here. We want to see everybody. There's a lot of you on here. I want to see everybody on here. Tell us, what's that one thing you're looking forward to doing that involves people again, getting together and being outside? We're talking about community today, and we want to know what your community ideas are, how you want to get out there and re-engage with the world now that we all can do it safely. Disney World, love it, love it. Comedy, okay. Live music. A trade show,
Lots of
I can't wait to go
travel.
back to a trade show. As much as exhibiting is challenging to stand in a booth for 10 hours, I can't wait to go back and see all of your friendly faces on the trade show floor again. That's going to be super fun. Yep, camp with the rest of the world. Love it.
I saw Portugal in there. That is like
Portugal's
top
pretty
of my
great.
List that I'd love to go to.
Getting on a plane, I don't even remember how to fly.
Yeah.
I miss the reckless snacks that I would just buy for the plane.
Yes.
Or road trips.
Meeting one of friends when you go to those places you've never been before, and you're at the trade show and you meet that person at the after party you've never met before, and you have the best night of your life with your new best friend. I miss that sort of stuff. I can't wait to get back out there and do all that. Working a trade show at the end in Vegas. Vegas trade shows, that's where it's at. All right, keep them coming. If you haven't told us what you're doing yet, drop it in the chat. When I do go back to the slides, I can't see the chat anymore, so I'll be toggling back and forth. But let's get into some of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about today. We want to sort of cover two main areas of how to leverage your online community. But the area we want to focus on most is if you're not the community manager. This session is not specifically how to be a community manager and how to be great at it. There's lots of content around that. What we want to talk about today is how the non-communities of the world should be leveraging their online community. If this is an asset your organization has, this is a social gathering place where members can get together, how are you non-community managers using the community? And then it wouldn't be an association analytics webinar if we didn't talk about data. So not only how can you leverage the community, but I'm also going to be adding some commentary on how can you leverage data coming from your community. Not if you're the community manager, if you're not the community manager. What's the data that's inside your community that you should be leveraging? Maybe you're not, maybe you don't know how to, or maybe you don't know what to do with it yet. Today, we're going to talk about those, just getting a better understanding of your online community. That's our goal here. So we're going to get started with some thought leadership here. Association Analytics partnered with this awesome research group, ORI and Higher Logic. And we did a study in the middle of COVID to figure out what's going on. And one of the number one things they found was that in response to the pandemic, 54% of people reported an increased use in online communities. So if during the pandemic, online communities utilization increased, doesn't that tell us even more so that we need to be focusing on the value of our online community? Again, not just for the community manager, but for everybody else in that organization. So that's part of why we're talking about this today. But we also want to hear from you. So Bill, this is going to be our first poll question we're going to launch. Which department in your association do you think primarily benefits from your online community? We've thrown a couple things we think up here, but we want to hear from you. What do you think the department that's going to benefit most from the online community is? Go ahead and fill out the answer, and we'll give it a couple seconds here. Let's go advocacy.
It's like we all have a horse in the race. Who's going to win?
All right, and if you choose other, go ahead and tell us in the chat which department you meant there. Chapters. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That's one we missed.
Okay, good. There we go.
All right, let's see our answers. Membership, number one by a huge win there. Marketing and events are tied. Not by surprise there. We'll get into that in a second here. Advocacy does get some votes. Publication gets some votes. Other gets some votes. If you don't have an online community, thanks for joining us, the three of you. Hopefully after this, you might think about getting an online community, as we think, and we're going to talk about it in a second here, is a tremendous member benefit. So we broke it down into three main personas that we think can get specific benefits from the online community in a number of ways. And we're going to talk about these today: membership, We're going to talk about events, specifically now that we're having more virtual and hybrid events. And we're going to talk about the content team. And when we say content, what we really mean is all of those places you produce content, your publications, your emails, your website, your learning management system, all those places you're creating content that's being consumed. We're going to talk about how the community can help benefit you there. So let's get started with membership. Jenny's going to get us kicked off with some things about membership. I'm going to talk a little bit about data, but we wanted to boil it down for you into several key buckets around membership. First off, we know that first-year member retention is key. Getting members engaged in the organization is key to getting them to be a retained member in the organization. And what we want to do is we want to help you understand how you're going to be able to leverage the community as a member benefit. But on the flip side, if we're using the community as a member benefit, it's going to provide us lots of information on understanding who our members are, what they want, who our potential members are. If we're going to market ourselves to potential members, how can our community data help out with that aspect of it? So we're going to talk about all of that. Now, I love Marketing General. If you're not following their webinars and downloading all their white papers, you're missing out. They consistently publish a marketing benchmarking report. And year after year, the answer is very similar, is why do members join an association? It's to network with others in the field. Number one reason. And the number three reason here is to access specialized or current information. And we're going to talk specifically about how those two things fit in with membership and fit in with online communities. Jenny?
Thanks, Greg. As Greg mentioned, we feel really strongly at HireLogic that the community needs to provide a purpose for both your organization and your members. There needs to be a blend of both of those needs in order for it to be successful in the long term. And a big part of that is introducing the members to the community benefit as a part of that onboarding process. Now, I'm sure all of you wear multiple hats within your association. I have, I think, yet to meet an association employee that does not have their hands in lots of different buckets. So it can be very time consuming to provide that personalized welcome that I'm sure your team wants to do for each and every new member. So what we have seen has been very, very effective is having the community take that workload off of your plate and really giving a 1-2 punch of let's automate this onboarding process as much as possible. Let's include some email outreach that trigger to people at very specific times and can also tell what someone has or hasn't done yet. So we don't want to send someone a picture an email encouraging them to upload a picture or introduce themselves if they've already done that. So these are really meant to be smart onboarding campaigns, but it's really meant to roll out the red carpet for those new members, introduce them to the incredible asset that is your community, while also introducing them to those other member benefits that the community is helping to support, mainly that networking piece, materials that you may have hosted in the community. We'll get into that a bit deeper as well. But as you'll see here, creating just a simple schedule of onboarding emails, pointing people to, here's your profile within the community. This is how you can network with your peers. Here are resources that are behind this paywall that as a member, you're getting this benefit. Here are discussions for you to connect with people. I love also sprinkling in this particular example of a customer of ours has a feedback email as well. Let's make sure that we're getting feedback along the way to make sure that we are meeting the mark here. And Greg will talk a little bit about how we can get data to back up that feedback as we
already got some data and we tricked our members into giving it to us, tricked in a polite way. I talk with hundreds of associations and I get this feedback all the time. We just don't have that much information on our members. They're not logging in and updating their bio on a regular basis. Think about the different calls to action we can send out here. Our association wants to market to you better, log in and update your profile, versus the community wants to know more about you. Update your profile so everyone else in the group understands who you are when they're having conversations with you. Which one of those calls to action do you think is going to be more successful? That personalized email that's built into a cadence coming from a real person like Jenny, the community manager, or an email blast out to everybody with the same call to action, update your profile, that has nothing to do with time sensitivity. It doesn't have anything to do with the action you have done or haven't done. Which one of those is going to be a more successful tactic on getting more data on your members?
So, so Jenny,
Yeah.
how, so essentially what we're looking at here is like an automated, like a workflow, an automated workflow for onboarding in the community. I'm just curious, just off the top of your head, like what percentage of HireLogic, customers would you say are using something like this?
I would venture to guess about 25%. That number should be and could be so much higher. I think it's one of the most underutilized aspects of our product that we have. But there is something as well that we've built out, that we've really built into our onboarding and training to help beef this up a little bit, is having some best practices out of the box. So it can be hard to think of something right out of the gate, but we provide you just with some templates of what we have seen to be the most effective messaging. As Greg was saying, we want it to be personal. We've got some examples we'll show you. So we have those pre-built for you, so you can just tweak instead of having to create something from scratch. So we really are working hard to get the adoption of these much higher, because they really are so powerful at both staff efficiency as well as that member retention piece.
Agreed. Yeah. So 25 to 30%. That's a little lower than I would have hoped. So the feedback that we get very often, because we're talking about community in the for engagement, right? For measures of member engagement, and oftentimes we hear that the percentage of members in the community is high. And mostly because it's automatic, right? They're kind of joined automatically when they become a member, but most of them are not active, right? And I think a lot of that goes back to you're not really positioning them to succeed in the community because there's not more hand-holding at the beginning. So whoever is listening and doesn't have a process like this, highly encourage you to look into that right away.
Here's a fun question. Jenny knows the answer. Bill, what is the conversion on an average marketing email? If you had to just pick a number, what do you think the conversion on an average marketing email is?
2%.
Jenny, what do you think the conversion on an average personalized onboarding email is?
20%.
20%. So what a huge difference. An average marketing email is getting 2% conversion rate. These personalized emails that are timely and triggered based on activity can get 20% conversion rate on that. Tell me again, you don't have enough data on your members. Here's a great tactic to go and get that data on your members.
Absolutely. And here are a couple of examples of these automated outreach. And I like to say that they're personalized but automated. So it's really not meant to look like a form email. Using the mail merge variables essentially within the community so that you're addressing people by their first name or their formal title and first and last name, if that's more of the atmosphere of your community. I always, and I am a little biased as a community manager by trade, having a real person be that signature and have the reply to this email go to that real community manager, that really makes the world of a difference, because people can put a face to a name. It brings some personal feel to the community so that people aren't thinking that this is just kind of another marketing channel. It really is more of that community atmosphere and feel. So really phrasing this like, I, Jenny, noticed that Greg is brand new to the community. So I am reaching out to him from my personal inbox. And if he has questions, he just hits reply and it comes to me. That's really the idea behind these.
I am a personal recipient of these emails. So here I've got an email from Jenny. The key here is this doesn't look like a marketing email. There's no header, there's no box around it, there's no colors, there's no inline imaging. This looks and feels like an email that Jenny just drafted from her inbox because she wanted to know what's going on with me. She wanted to really touch base with me. Now there's still canned spam stuff at the bottom. There's still unsubscribe buttons because you have to include that. But if I didn't know better, I would think Jenny opened up Outlook this morning and fired off an email to me that was really personalized to me. Now, let's put this in that lens of membership. We know that onboarding members is key. How easy is it to get that 1 or 2 emails you email me with 100 things I can do and just forget about them, versus seeing a face show up in your inbox, someone who cares about you and wants you to engage with the community? How does that change your onboarding process? And how does that sort of get members on the right path early on in their journey? At the same time, it's starting to collect more data on these people. We're now learning from them. We're going to talk about this. We're now learning from them more demographics about them because they've updated their profile. We're going to start learning more about them based on the communities and the groups they proactively choose to join. And we're going to learn even more when they start searching, they start discussing, posting, replying, liking, commenting, sharing, all those fun sort of actions they're going to do. All of that's more data on these members that we're going to be able to use for our own purposes. How about these non-members? Can I use a community to recruit people, or is this just like a garden, like a locked garden that you have to have a membership key to get in?
That's a great question, Greg. This is one of my favorite examples that have come out of the pandemic, to be quite honest, is I believe leading up to the pandemic, the communities really were, I would say probably 80 to 90% locked down completely just to members. And that did serve a purpose and still does in a lot of ways. But the software itself, and this is another kind of underutilized feature, I would say, is that you can create pages and areas within the community that are open to people that do not have a paid membership. This is a fantastic way to convert non-members. This example in particular, a fantastic client of ours, ASCE, they created a whole page of COVID-related resources within their community. By making this content publicly available, this was being crawled by Google. There were so many people that were hitting this page that had never even heard of their society before. So you'll see here that they even opened up a conversation on the left. They opened up a community, a group for people to have conversations with one another as well. So I am looking forward to following up with Tirza, our community manager over there. But I would imagine that there becomes a transition process of, now that we're kind of out of the thick of it, really kind of working to slowly upsell them, if you will, but just say like, hey, we really loved engaging with you during this time. Here's some other resources that we think might be helpful to you. And here's what our society is here to support you on. We would really encourage you to become a member.
Jenny, what a perfect example of COVID sort of forcing us to do things we know we always should have done. We know we should have been having virtual events, but we never did. Then we tested them out and it turns out they worked out well. We kind of suspected that leaving portions of our community open would be good, but there were so many people saying, no, that's a terrible idea. What if? Well, when we open these communities up, the what if is happening. And I think the answer is going to be lots of recruitment, lots of non-members they've never heard of before, showing up, self-identifying, and leaving footprints behind for marketing to use later. So what a great membership tool here to find and attract new members, not just engage the existing members you have.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So let's talk about some of the data. We followed Jenny's advice. We've left portions of our community open and it attracted new people into our ecosystem. We used personalized onboarding campaigns to get new members to join our community and participate, to get new members to update their profile, to get new members to tell us more about themselves, and to get new members to start participating in the community. Now here comes the reward, is all this juicy data you're getting back. So using our platform Acumen, you're able to analyze monthly churn in the community. Who are the new members who just joined last month? A great community manager tactic is called seed questions. If I don't know that a massive population of student members just joined last month, I, as a community manager, can't start seeding questions for students. The same time is we look at that, what's called unstructured data. So this is often referred to as dark data because it's really hard to get at. If you've never heard of unstructured data, think about something you can't sort or filter in Excel. That's unstructured data. Something like all the conversations that are happening in your community. What are the key topics that are being discussed? Now think about filtering by segment, by member type, by join date, by committee participation, by group they're a part of, and really getting insight into what do those members care most about. If you had your direct finger on the pulse of your members, what would you do with that information? And I'll give you some examples of how some of our partners are using that. Let's also think about sentiment. We want to understand the conversations that are happening in our community. Do they have a positive sentiment? Do they have a negative sentiment? When you have a really good community, it's going to be more conversations than you can ever read in your lifetime. This is a good thing, but this is where technology comes in, because we want to identify where are those really positive conversations that we might want to promote to non-members to see, and where are those negative conversations that we as a community manager might need to get ahead of, or we as an organization might need to recognize that we're falling short here. Nothing works better when you're falling short than transparency. Saying, yep, this is a problem. We've identified this problem and we're putting together a plan to fix it. That's a great community tactic to turn a negative into a positive. But if you can't see that stuff, you can't use it. Now, all of these potential non-members think there's this negative thing going on that you're trying to hide behind because you didn't even know it was happening. This can be a challenge. So I always like to use ASAE as an example. They do such a great job at being an industry leader here. If you go to their website and you go to sign up as a member, they have a join page. You all have join pages, right? But how did you build the content on your join page? Do you sort of guess at member benefits? Do you plaster everything on that join page and it's 500 pages long and I scroll forever to find the one or two things I care about? Or do you use data to identify, if we're going to talk to member categories, what are our most popular member categories? If we're going to highlight resources, what does the data tell us are the most popular resources members engage with? If we're going to highlight community, we've got to make sure we have a rich, thriving community that we can point people to. So when you build your member join statement and your value propositions, you can directly relate what members really like and what they're doing on a regular basis with what you're publishing, right? I go to a lot of these join pages and I see things like Geico Insurance or download this white paper. How many people a year are downloading that white paper? Is that really a member benefit? Or is it more about the networking, more about the connections and events, the things that members actually do on a regular basis? Let's bump those up to the top and highlight them. Not saying Geico Insurance isn't good, I've got it.
And to take that a step further, actually, Greg, yeah, perfect. I would even, given the research that we uncovered with ORI, the kind of what we saw with ASCE, I would even encourage ASAE, or if you're thinking of restructuring this page at all and you have a community, there is nothing more dynamic than bringing some of those conversations onto a page like this. So instead of describing what the community does, which can be really helpful, to see examples of, oh, these are the types of conversations. And it kind of taps into that, the fear of missing out of, I want to join that, or I know how to answer that, or I have the same question. So that's something that if you're not already doing, that's a quick win that I would highly recommend that you do.
And let me add one other thing to that. I know this is a community discussion and we're talking about leveraging community data. However, I would point out that the community is one of many sources that you have access to that can inform these types of things, right? So you have a marketing system, you of course have an AMS, learning management, all of those have data that give you valuable insight as to member engagement, which is really another way of saying, what do members value, right? What do your current members value? What do your current customers value? And those are the things that you're going to want to highlight to attract new members as well.
Love it. So it's sort of a feedback mechanism. We find out what the members really love. We use that as a positioning statement to get new members. New members join because they want those things as well. And it just sort of feeds back into itself to help us be successful. Awesome. Looking at my clock, I want to change gears a little bit because we have two other exciting topics to talk about, and we want to do Q&A at the end. We want to engage with everybody as much as we can. Events. Events is a sticky topic because events are changing, right? Over the last year, a lot of us didn't have events. As we emerge from the pandemic, we're going back to having physical events. We want to have hybrid events. Do we still offer hybrid events? We tested virtual events, but we're going back. How are we going to do this? I think community has a really big play here. And I think that you should be using your community for events for every event you have, big, little, small. I think community has a direct relation to making sure that event is exciting, but also getting data about how to better run your events from community. We're going to cover both those topics. So we're going to talk about how to use event communities to get people engaged. We're going to talk about how to bring people together around an event before and after. but then we're also going to use data to help determine potential topics for our community, potential speakers for our community. How do we even market our event to the best possible list? I think the community might be able to help us there. Now, I dropped in this term AMA and Ask Me Anything. I wanted to start off with a few questions about this because Ask Me Anythings are really popular around events. So Jenny, can you tell me what an Ask Me Anything is?
Absolutely. So an Ask Me Anything, originally coined by the Reddit community, is when you bring an expert onto the online community. So in a specific place for either a specific amount of time or window of time, and users or members in this case can come in and ask questions of this expert within that allocated time frame. So it gives them ready access to someone that all of us would want to pick their brain about something.
Awesome. If you on the chat here have done an AMA in your community around an event, tell us about it. Tell us about when you did it and sort of what the success of that event was. I want to hear some success stories. But as we learn from all of you about that, I have a question for Jenny that I don't know the answer to. So I'm about to have an event and I have a keynote speaker that everybody's excited to talk to. And this keynote speaker said they're going to do an AMA for me. They've got extra time they can donate. Do we want to do that AMA before the event, or do we want to do that AMA following the event? What to you makes more sense? Because I see pros and cons on each side of this.
I do too. You know, if it's someone who is well established as a speaker, the value I typically see in having an AMA leading up to an event is either drumming up attendance. And also, if it's a speaker that's looking to customize their presentation and really fine tune it to maybe a smaller audience. So if this is someone that's more of a keynote speaker, people are probably aware of who they are. I would say after the event. I think that's a great way to take the energy that the speaker likely really harnessed in the actual presentation and then carry that over and that momentum into the community. Also gives the attendees a chance to kind of formulate what kind of questions they would ask them based on what they presented.
Love it. So the decision to do the AMA before or after is kind of around the popularity of the speaker. Is it designed to get people excited beforehand, or am I already excited to see the speaker? Is it designed to help the speaker fine tune their content so it's most relevant for the audience? Or is the AMA designed to answer their questions after they've already seen it and keep that excitement going? Awesome. And of course, we're going to send you the slides after this. We will upload this to YouTube. You can watch it forever. And we will send everybody on this the slides so you have access to them as well. Yes, yes. All right, so let's talk more about event communities. What's an event community? How does this work? Why should I be doing this? Why haven't I done this yet?
Absolutely. So some of you may have been aware last year around this time, actually, as it became clear that events were needing to be virtual or at least hybrid in the near to distant future. Higher Logic really rallied along the idea of creating a very specific event environment for your virtual attendees. So before, how we would see events really structured within an online community is perhaps they would have their own site to display information of the upcoming event, and then perhaps have some breakout areas within that community, so sub-communities or groups about a specific event or tracks even. We really wanted to double down on that, and we did. We had, I believe, close to 200 customers and also people who aren't customers of Higher Logic take us up on our offer to provide this online space for them last year. So you'll see here, this is a template that we had. We wanted to help out associations during that time and say, this is a place where we can do our very best to recreate that networking experience, the place for you to house your documents leading up to and after the event, a place for speakers to engage with your attendees. And also something I'll specifically touch on is a place for sponsors to also get that visibility when you're not in, they don't have access to that physical booth space that they would in an in-person event.
so I get it. It's a website. It's branded for my event. It's got my speaker information here. Why? Maybe I didn't understand fully why community is relevant though. Like, what about community makes it different than every other event website I've been to?
Absolutely. So the community piece is going to help you to make connections with other attendees and also give you access to those speakers so that if you're in a session or you're attending a virtual session, something that I always found to be the most helpful thing at an event is turning to the person next to me, learning where they're from, learning what challenges that they're also facing, and having conversations around that and leveraging what I'm listening to and learning from experts and applying it to my own work. So having a community around each event or each presentation opens up that space so that you can see who else is in the room with me, who else can I form a connection with, and then also on a more just operational level, where can I get the slides? Where can I get the recordings?
Yeah.
So we put all of that into one happy little home within this, what otherwise may have been just a static website.
Mm-hmm. And then, so question, Jenny, would you say that your event community customers are using the site and using the service after the event as well?
Great question. That was one that we did have several. If someone was already a customer, we had a playbook to help them translate that specific event experience and find ways that we could continue that engagement with their already existing community throughout the year, so that we could really maximize that and then hopefully recreate that this coming year as well. Those that this was their first introduction to HireLogic, we did have several that realized that there are many ways that they could benefit from this engagement of their members year round, or they had smaller events, more frequent events throughout the year that they saw the value of this. So they did translate that into a longer term community with us.
Awesome.
I wanna say it was N10 had an event community with an introduce yourself here thread.
Yes.
And like a third of the attendees going introduced themselves. Not only that, they posted a picture, they talked about what they wanted to learn. And I think they posted their favorite GIF, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And it was so much fun it was an open community. So even those not going to the event could see the engagement that was happening, but it was so exciting to, like, this is back in physical events. It was like, oh, who wants to go out and go get, steak at this steakhouse we're going to go to? And a group of people got together. Who wants to go learn this? A group of people got together. Who's a first-time attendee? A group of people got together. It was so exciting to watch the community just get the event going. And we hadn't even gotten on a plane yet. I already know who I want to talk to. I'm already excited to meet these people. I see Bill walking down the hallway and I know everything about his dog already. Like, these are the connections. This is the spark that an online community can help deliver to your event. So when we get there, we're already to hit the ground running. And we did that today. We do introduce yourself here as well. It is because we want to know where you're calling in from and learn about you, but it's also to get you talking. That's one of the primary ways we can get people engaged as a tactic. We talked about a couple so far around physical events and communities is introduce yourself here threads. What are you hoping to learn? What are you looking out of this conference? And introducing our thought leaders with Ask Me Anythings, getting them to promote themselves. Nobody on the chat here said they didn't ask me anything in their community. I'm going to challenge all of you. Over the next couple months, I want you all to do an Ask Me Anything in the community. Find an event you have coming up, get that speaker who's excited about doing it, and maybe a moderator to help them, and post and Ask Me Anything. It's got to be time sensitive. This can't be post a question, we'll answer when we get to it. It's got to be something like Monday between 1 and 3 o'clock, we're going to be in the community live answering your questions. If you send them in, we'll answer them. Try it out, and I guarantee you'll have success, and I guarantee you'll have a better event for it, and your attendees and speakers are going to thank you for it. Try it out. I think you're going to really like it.
Absolutely. And as Greg was just saying, there are ways that you can make sure that conversation is happening through seeding content. So helping to tap your previous attendees. This is a great way to engage them further with your association, is saying, hey, Bill, you were an attendee the last 5 years. We'd love for your help to get people excited. Would you post this question or a question you have? But also you'll be surprised about what sort of things that you didn't even think about posting pop up. Like Greg said, those spontaneous, either virtual or in-person meetups. One of my favorites was people consolidating their notes and saying, there are so many great sessions, I can't make all of them. Who's going to this one that I can borrow your notes from? So really, it's just incredible to see how people will surprise you around events. And then Greg, I'm sure will go into the data that you can see from these conversations that can then help you really elongate that excitement post-event as well.
Perfect.
And then
sponsors, because
yeah,
one thing I hear time and time again is we had a virtual event, but we didn't engage our sponsors. We didn't make any money off of it. We lost money because we didn't know how to plug our sponsors in. How does a virtual event help me with sponsors if they're not actively in the Zoom webinar with me?
It was my number one question from every single person I talked to about virtual events was, we have to engage our sponsors, and they are typically the lifeblood of an event. So how are they getting their money's worth if they're not physically in front of these attendees? This is also where the community can really help give them that visibility. I say this with a community manager hat on with like a little asterisk of, we want to make sure that we're teaching them how to engage within the community so that they're not just coming out and selling. I say that with my sales engineering hat on, that you want to strike a balance there of positioning them as experts in their field, giving them the space. So that's also a great ask me anything possibility, is having someone who is an expert of the particular product or field, having open office hours, where you provide a thread for people to ask and answer questions. I love creating their own resource area, because that's also data that you can track and give back to the sponsor and say, these are the people that downloaded your content, or these people engaged with you within the thread. Those are the leads that kind of replace the business card exchange.
So even if I don't have a virtual event platform, I can reuse the community for sort of that booth experience, upload your videos, put your documents here. If people have questions about you as a vendor, you can talk about them here. Maybe even have sponsored threads. Obviously, we want to be fully disclosing that this is a sponsored thread, but as an exhibitor, I'd pay a couple extra dollars to get a thread on the channel to talk about my latest thing and have people ask questions about it. That seems like a great sponsorship opportunity for me.
Absolutely. And there's advertising space that's allocated within the communities, as Greg was saying too. So if they've got some click tracking that they want to have as well, exposure in those daily digest emails that may be going to people's inboxes, that's a great way to repurpose that functionality that's already built into your community to help support those sponsors during your event and after.
And as soon as I said it, I heard about half the audience cringe. Sponsored content in my community? That's crazy. Tell that to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, every social media platform out there that relies on sponsored content to allow the free content to be there. This is a common business model in online communities. You can take advantage of it. It's not scary. As long as you're transparent, your members will be okay with it. So how do we leverage the data from our online community to talk about our event? We talked a little bit about this already, but if your members are talking, are you listening to what they have to say? And in Acumen, you can use the data not only to understand what your members are talking about, but what specific segments of your members are talking about, how those trends and topics have changed over time. Here's a perfect example. I imagine everybody on the call remembers March of last year, where this big spike in conversations around this thing happened. But right underneath those in orange is this other topic that comes up, is this idea of force majeure being talked about in the community. And if you knew that your members were talking about that was time sensitive in the community, what would you do about it? Well, if I was this organization, right after I noticed it in the community, I would email me. And here's the email I got from them right here, specifically highlighting force majeure. They created landing pages, they created virtual content, they created events I could attend, answering this question. It wasn't by accident that the team knew I cared about this. They saw it in the data, they brought it up to their team members, and they responded to it. This is a perfect way to be able to get ahead of what your members are thinking and caring about. If they're talking, are you listening? We get dinged so often for not listening to our members, but if we're providing them a forum, we got to use that data. And here's something I want you all to do. If you're not the community manager, I want you to go to your community manager in the next week and ask them, what are the hot topics in our community? What are the things I don't know about the data, because I'm planning this event and I need to know what our members care about. Here's the type of event I'm planning. Help me get access to the data that's going to help me plan this event better. Not just the data on what's happening. Here's another perfect example. If you were at the tech conference late last year, you might have noticed a theme. You might have noticed they were talking about data, 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 and data. It's not because they're Star Trek fans. It's because they knew that their technology professionals were talking about data on a regular basis, and that they responded by creating content that was relevant to those members based on the conversations they were having. This is a perfect example of aligning your content with what your members want and are talking about because you're listening. And then the other piece I want to talk about here is identifying potential speakers and influencers, right? If each one of these dots is your ecosystems, this is a network analysis. Each one of these dots is how influential those people are. Who should you tap to be a speaker, to promote you on social media, to tweet that they just registered and they're going, to potentially be a panelist on that discussion? You want to pick the people who are influencers. You want to pick the people who really are showing that they can speak and people can listen. Those are the people you want to tap into to be able to get the most out of your data. Now, I want to tell one other story that doesn't require a tool. It just requires creating an event community. Is a concept I stumbled across a long time ago. And the story is called the HR Department of One. If you know Ann Margaret Olson, she was the community manager for a very large HR organization at the time. They had an event community, and one member just posted, hey, I'm an HR Department of One and I'm coming to this event. Is anybody else an HR Department of One like me? And 300 people responded in the next couple days. I'm also an HR Department of One and I'm coming. It was by far the most popular thread they had at their community, at their pre-community online community. So what did they do about this? The bottom of the thread, everybody says, we're going to get together in the hallway outside the opening session. Now, you're an event planner and you're listening to what's going on in the community. Do you want 300 people standing outside the opening to your keynote talking and getting together? No, that's not what we want. So they got them a room. They actually said, we'll have a room, we'll send staff, and we'll listen to exactly what you want to have. This organization now has an entire track about HR Department of One. They have dedicated communities for this. They create content for this. They have events specific for this. Who do you think they tapped to be the volunteers to help get that up and running? What sort of content do you think they created for those people? It was the fact that they self-identified in the community as being a subpopulation worth listening to, that they were able to create additional revenue streams off this subpopulation, but benefiting that subpopulation, leveraging them as volunteers to help get that up and running. That's a true story. It's a perfect example of leveraging an online community, understanding the data that it's driving to make a better decision and run your events even better. What a perfect example. All right, let's get to our third tier here. Looking at the clock, we've got about 10 minutes left, plenty of time. So we talked so far about membership, about onboarding. We talked about events. Let's talk about all the other content you produce. So we're about to send an email. We're about to create a course in our LMS. We're updating our website. How do we use data to do this better, smarter, faster? How do we leverage our community to help us do this? So how do we leverage our community to have a better newsletter?
Absolutely. So instead of guessing or just having a static content calendar of what sort of content you're sending out in those newsletters, a lot of our customers have started doing this, and this is fabulous to see, which is sharing those popular threads within the community in those other outlets, whether it's a virtual newsletter, the physical ones, creating a link that is easily kind of copied and pasted. And this works both ways too. This is both taking content from the community and cross promoting it, make sure that people know that this is a place where they can connect with their peers, but it also is making the content you're already creating more engaging by creating conversations around that, lead article that you worked so hard on. I'm sure there are some differing opinions on that possibly, or maybe it's something that you're looking for feedback or people's examples. Drive people to the community, have a community that's specifically around continuing conversations on your content.
Love it, love it. What about my automated email campaigns? I got a lot of these and I don't know how community fits at all.
Absolutely. So with that piece, you want to have what users are doing within the community, what kind of content they're looking at. Even if you have, let's say, an event registration ad within your community, wouldn't it be great if that then translates back to your marketing automation software so that you're having even more targeted messaging to these folks? So if you're creating an event registration campaign, then I want to have a specific branch for people that I know looked at the event community, or I know participated in this conversation. That way I can drive them more specific content based on what they've been talking about or what they've been engaging with within the community.
Love it, love it. All right, talking about LMS courses, I think this is a great fit. As you're building your courses in your LMS, think about your community. When you learn in the real world, it's typically in a classroom setting. You're sitting next to somebody, you're comparing notes, you're asking questions of each other, you're studying together, you're doing flashcards with each other. It's really hard to do that in a virtual learning world. So I can leverage my community to create a study group or to create a resources page. I've seen organizations before, every time a class starts, they put them all in a community together and they all work through the entire content together. As we take the test, we're studying. As we pass, we're succeeding. And the idea there is we're not individual learners on our own journey. We're all in this together, right? The idea of being together creates a little bit of that social pressure that, hey, if I don't do this, if I don't complete my coursework and pass the test, Jenny, she's going to be upset that I didn't pull through my weight. And if Jenny doesn't pull her weight, I'm going to be upset as well. We're holding each other accountable, but we're also helping each other out. Now, at the same time, if you see in here, somebody's like, I took the test and I didn't understand at all what they were talking about. That wasn't covered in the course. Let's go back and fine tune our course. If we notice that this is the #1 downloaded resource in this community, let's add that as a part of our course criteria. Maybe it's even something member generated. Maybe the member came up with a really unique way to present the information and you say, hey, can we throw that in our course? That's really great. We want to leverage this resource for everybody else inside of our courses so they all can benefit from this. So there's a great tie-in between all those other places you produce content and your online community. We're going to do some quick takeaways. I want to peel back the curtain and tell you some stats about this event you attended today. And then we want to see questions and Q&A in the chat in the next 5 or 6 minutes. So key takeaways. If you are not the community manager, you need to go find that community manager or the person who's responsible for it in your organization, and you need to ask them better questions. How can I use this as a member benefit? How are we onboarding our members? So when a brand new person shows up, they're in the community. How can I leverage the data the community generates to create better value propositions, to target our members better, to understand what members really care about? So the next time I send out a why you should join message, I got my finger on the pulse of the membership. You should join because this conversation in our community over here, I know you want to know the answers. It's right here as a member benefit. You should join to be able to access those. If you're running an event, you got to have an event community. You got to do an Ask Me Anything. You got to encourage people to talk in the community, whether it's through seeding questions ahead of time or just through organic discussions. You know somebody has a question about getting the PowerPoint afterwards. You know somebody has a question about how to download the mobile app. You know somebody has a question about, is there a bus terminal near the airport I can get a ride? Who wants to share a ride to the airport from the, from the hotel? All of that is going to happen. Get that stuff going. Encourage those touch points before the event even gets started. And if you're not in membership and events, figure out a way to leverage your community. It is a wealth of information about what your members are doing and talking about and care about. And it is a tool that you have at your fingertips that you can use for your own purposes. Whether you're trying to juice your newsletter, highlight community participation. Here's our #1 community member for the month. Jenny got a gold star in the community. Here she is posting about this thing you care about. or it's a way to continue that traffic. Here's our #1 article. We spent so much time and effort researching and writing this. I know you're going to have questions. Come into our community and let's talk about this article. Maybe you even have some secret takeaways that you have to go into the community to get access to. If you read the newsletter and you want to know more, it's over here in the community. You can get it. So I think from my side, the takeaways are your community is a valuable asset that you need to leverage, both from a tactical standpoint, but also from a data standpoint. If you're not leveraging the data your community creates, you're missing out on a huge benefit. Why are LinkedIn and Google and Facebook worth billions and billions of dollars? It's not the ads they're selling, it's the data they have access to. It's the way they use that data. And you have a community, except 3 of you, you can leverage that data as well to be successful in your organization, just like they are. It's not Big Brother. It's not scary. People are expecting you to personalize their content for them. And if you're not, you're missing a great opportunity. Jenny, I wonder what your takeaways so far are.
What I would add to the great takeaways that you've already said is that the data that you have, it is hard to make it work for you if it's siloed. So the community gives your community manager a fabulous like snapshot of how the community's going. But if I, as a community manager or someone else that the community benefits in some way, wants to prove the value of that, that's when I need to cross-reference that with other key performance trackers that you have within your association. As in, do I see a correlation between someone renewing their membership with how active they are within the community? Do I see that onboarding takes less time if I tie that into an automated campaign within the community? So having a place where all of that data can commingle so you can really see the big picture is really the future of associations, and also just helps you to anticipate your members' needs.
Awesome. Hey, let me add 2 quick things as we wrap up here. There's a couple of extra pro tips, right, during the talk here that I wanted to make sure that we highlight. So one is create an area in your community for non-members. I mean, that's something that I haven't seen a lot of, but it's going to be an amazing way to bring new constituents and maybe even new members into the fold. Second one is related to what Jenny said about silo data, right? So Greg gave the HR department of one example of people that self-identify as part of a group, but think about all of the data you have, demographics, purchasing data, preferences, interests, things like that. You have a massive amount of data already that allows you to people don't have to self-identify. You can place them into groups based on what they're interested in. You can make some very good educated guesses as to what kind of content they're going to be interested in. And you should absolutely be doing that. And the last one, those event communities are really rich sources of year-round engagement. So I encourage you to take advantage of those as well. Okay. So I want to thank Greg and Jenny for the conversation, and to all the audience members for your participation today. We do have some exciting news. So we get frequent requests for hands-on how-to sessions related to common data and analytics issues. So we're proud to announce that we've listened and we've created an all-new how-to discussion series where we're going to focus on practical tips to address everyday questions that many of you have. We'll still have these virtual discussions as well, but just on a slightly modified schedule. So we're going to kick off this how-to series on May 5th. So look out for information about those in your inbox. And we'd love to hear, what you'd like to learn about, right? So we've got a tentative schedule worked out. I'm going to invite everyone listening to email me personally, and I'll be thinking through ideas that we can present on this how-to series. So thank you very much for your time and attention today, and we look forward to seeing everyone on May 5th.